I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.
See what this is, not what you think it is. See what this actually is. But you may have to look at what you think it is for a long period of time. You need to look at whatever it looks like until you see what it is. You're going to have to look at that. And if you can, don't add, subtract, or divide. Before I go into that, I want to ask you again, help me, help us to help others. Many people are not going to ever, you have some value. If you see some value here, you wouldn't be showing up. You wouldn't do this week after week, day after day, month after month. Some of you, year after year, have been showing up. Sometimes weekdays, as I have. So I'm saying, help us help others that are never going to walk into a Buddhist monastery, let alone even meditate. But they might look at a sign out front that says the Community Mindfulness Center, learn to practice mindfulness, or mindfulness training, no charge. We can get the funds to run this. We can get that, but we need the bricks and mortar. Nobody wants to donate to big organizations that fund things, want to fund programs. Kind of a big thing. You have to build the building, but then you can get some help. Not always that way, of course. So if you can, you can. Where's your rose-colored glasses? You don't know? Oh, why don't you put those on a little bit so I can see you? Because right now it looks like you're a movie star. You mind?
It's more comfortable.
Well, then leave them on. I don't care what you do. I just want you to see what this is. You can wear whatever you want to wear. So help us if you can. If you can't, then go about your business. Help yourself. Continue to help yourself. But I need help. I'm asking you. I don't ask for much, if you haven't noticed, other than train your mind. Here we are. We're going to do this some more. Please, I'm asking you, supplicating you, train your mind. See what is true so that you don't take your unexamined aggression that you think is out there and turn it around and go after other people by either blaming. I'm not saying that they aren't relatively to blame. Of course, you can find reasons everywhere for things that people are doing that are making you feel bad. Of course, but that's the very nature of relative truth. That's the nature of illusion. It just seems so damn real. It's so real that you actually think that you can solve the problem out there. You can't wring 1 ounce of happiness out of samsara. And if you do get something out of samsara that helps you, it will go away. What can you do? It's a spiritual path. You can dedicate your life. Dedicate your life to others. You might have to spend a lot of time looking at how you don't really want to do that. You'd rather just continue to be self-serving. Am I accusing you of anything? No, you're probably accusing yourself of it. So sit down, hold still, watch the movement. Very simple. You can call it Buddhism, you can call it mindfulness, you can call it whatever you want. Different names for it, different techniques. If I teach Shikantaza to 50 people, they're all going to be doing something different. Why? Because Shikantaza is such an open way of teaching awareness practice that you will begin to see the very thing that you have been able to avoid or look away from or make up stories about or blame and so on and so forth. But by holding still and just watching the movement, eventually you will see what it actually is rather than what you think it is. This takes a long time. Cannot be done in a short time. Pardon me. Highly motivated to encourage you, to help you, to support you in doing what? Train your mind so you can see, so you aren't constantly obscured by your own grasping, rejecting, and shutting down or closing off or distracting yourself. Those are the three poisons. We need to watch them, not modify them, change them, or go into them with any kind of politics of experience. Not going to work. Maybe for 3 months, cognitive behavioral therapy will change your behavior, but your behavior is not as important. I could use all kinds of questions. The behavior is not as important as what you're looking at. The behavior needs to come out of what you see, not of what you think. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a therapist or have a psychiatrist or take medications or maybe you should. But if you can, spend a little bit of time doing absolutely nothing but looking at it. Just hold still and just look at what keeps tumbling down the mountain towards your brain pan. You can do that. Simple practice, simple technique, very, very difficult to do. The downside of difficult to do is just that. Not easy, not comfortable, aggravating, boring, irritating, whatever it may show up for you. But the upside of that is that's a sign that ego does not want that. Self-centered part of the consciousness does not want to be seen or viewed or fooled around with at all. It wants to just get credit and stay in control, even if it's only a tiny bit of control. It'll take it. It doesn't take much of that to reinforce, secure, and perpetuate the ongoing illusion of self and other, self, me. And you guys are that incredible illusion. Needs to be seen. If it's not seen, you or me or any of us will continue to operate out of this and that, right and wrong, up and down, even the big one, life and death. Those look like two different things. Find out. Don't take my word for anything. Find out. We can go into some, yes.
Total bowing. Does seeing the truth have anything to do with being happy?
No. Is that all you want to know? Don't believe anything I'm saying, but that's all. Look, it doesn't have anything to do with that. No. Happiness comes and goes. It's dependently risen, like everything else. Relative happiness, relative sadness, relative. Ultimate happiness, you could say, and there's a word for it in Buddhism, is sometimes used bliss, which is not a feeling. Ultimate situation is you're not concerned with what is occurring because you see that it's an illusion. You see that it can turn into hell one minute and heaven the next, and you just observe it. That which is observing is not doing anything unless it is identifying with that by being opposed to it, identified with that by being wanting more of it, identified with that by wanting to stop it, look away from it, ignore it. This is why we practice shikantaza. You're practicing watching what moves and slowly over time training your mind to just witness this whole situation without taking a position on anything, picking and choosing. More? Yeah.
Even bowing, you're talking about behaviors coming out of what we see. And, we can't, it seems like there's no say-so over what I'm seeing. I don't have any control over that. How am I supposed to have any sense of self-control?
You're not going to get any, but it seems like you want to know something else. I'm not tracking you. Can you paraphrase?
So I'm thinking about just a bunch of teachings, like, for example, 90-10 or the points of mind training. These are all seem to require some sense of self-control.
Yes.
How can I find a sense of self-control if I have say so over what I'm seeing?
So mind training is not about self-control, though some people teach it that way. It's about seeing how you have no control over anything at all. You do not have control. You have some, I can pick this up or I can put it down. I'm often using this example, but you did not create this. You don't have control over this hand. You did not invent fingers. And you did not grow the tree that this was taken out of or carve this. Somebody did, but it wasn't you or me. But once you get that far down the line of dependent origination, There's the illusion of pushing and pulling. That illusion is tied into passion, aggression, and ignorance, the description of how things operate in terms of belief in this illusion or relative truth. So let me know what you want to know about that.
Being valuing all of the teachings that point to a behavioral component, what are those for?
Just to observe them. You observe the behavior rather than try to push it or pull it. I'm not saying there aren't lots of teachings in the Buddha's Dharma down through the centuries of control things. One of the things is a big control thing is celibacy. Another big control thing is having a monastery where there are really tight, strong rules that you have to obey. You have to, if you don't do that, then you're a bad meditator, bad monk. And you might even get punished. Very militaristic approach to it. So that's not happening here. So take that further, what I've just said, take that further. Control, about the idea of control. Good question. I'm not trying to get rid of your question. I'm trying to refine it so that I can respond to it with what your intention is around what you want to know.
Be endowing right now, the way you described teachings that have to do with behavior, I'm seeing them as something solid, and I'm not as solid as I think I am.
Okay. What's the question?
Why? Well, why is it? I guess what's coming up
Why is
is
it
why is it so miserable to try to make myself into something I'm not? Why is that so?
It's just suffering, wanting something. The first noble truth of the Buddha taught is life is suffering. Nerve endings are everywhere. 5 sense feels, and then the thinking process, which is might as well be just packed with nerve endings. There's so much sensitivity. And in that area, it's not just this present moment. It's all the other moments that look like past and future, but are actually just more of the same. So it's very difficult to work with that, with the pushing and pulling and shutting down. And the suffering comes from whatever's showing up, not wanting something else, not being, I'm not saying being satisfied. That's another misunderstanding. It's not satisfaction. It's just seeing that things are as they are. The very name of this meditation is as it is. Whatever it is, it's not acceptable, not rejectable, and not ignorable. Passion, aggression, and do nothing with it. Don't accept anything. That just creates a self that accepts. Don't reject anything. That creates the illusion of part of consciousness that's able to push away or reject or go to war. And don't ignore. And noticing how you ignore or distract, noticing how you push, and noticing how, or being aware of those operations in consciousness. That which is being aware of that is not doing anything. But as long as those are not seen, as those are knee-jerk, pushing, pulling, shutting down, opening up, going this way, and there's some kind of identity of this, of a self that is doing that or feeling that or having that, some kind of possession of it, then it reinforces the primary illusion, which is our mistaken identity, which there is someone this is happening to. It's just happening in consciousness. All of the autobiography of there is just untrue. There is no one. It's not that there isn't a body here that's separate from the body over there. There are some separations, but they don't imply anything other than consciousness is here, consciousness is there. There's some kind of a separation going on, but the fundamental understanding in consciousness, not separate. This is wisdom, and it's the beginning of compassion. More.
Being bowing. Does awareness have form? Does it take form?
No. Awareness is just consciousness. It just watches the forms or observes the forms or aligns itself with the forms or pushes away. It depends on how the consciousness shows up. This is arising in consciousness, and this is also consciousness. Again, not two. The two-ness that we impute is there's a lot of space and things arising in space. So we have to start somewhere. Watch what arises in space until you see yourself. that which is arising and that which is apparently being housing or taking care of what is arising is not separate from that which is arising. It's the ultimate non-duality, while still looking like something's happening. It's an illusion. It's like celluloid. You know what celluloid is? It's what movie film is made of. It's just not real. So that's why it's important to observe, to see what's happening rather than conclude anything about it. That's why it's important to be conscious or be aware of what's happening rather than try to control your activity, control your emotions, control your thoughts, and so on. More?
Yun Bowing, do I possess awareness?
No. There's an illusion, the illusion that I am aware of this altar or I'm aware of you. That's an illusion. Awareness is aware. If you need some kind of a construct or some kind of word combination, then awareness is aware, or consciousness is conscious. Just like wisdom, the ultimate understanding, it doesn't see anything but wisdom. It just sees wisdom everywhere. But that which it sees, the singularity that's happening there as separate beings, they're relatively free in the illusion or in the dream. They're relatively free. It's very much like a lucid dream that is so lucid, so completely lucid that reality is this here, and you can stab somebody, and you can kiss somebody, and you can give them your pile of donuts. You can do whatever you want, and it just reinforces itself constantly. And most of the world is operating on this so much that they see that illusion so clearly that they'll build Bradley fighting vehicles and M16s and what is the other thing? M80s, the little firecracker. The smile out of somebody. That we can build these destructive things and actually feel while we're doing it that we're doing some kind of valuable thing. We bought into a part of the illusion, like buying into a political party. We just buy into it. If you buy into Buddhism, this is a misunderstanding of Buddhism. There's nothing to believe in. If you believe in Buddhism, it's not Buddhism. You believe in ideas about Buddhism. The actual, what the Buddha is pointing at, you can't find it. The only place you can find what Buddhism is pointing at is right here. Not in the soul man, but in yourself. Find out here. You might need someone to point to it for you. But if you're all caught up in your thoughts and you're not paying attention, and you have no mind training at all, there's no way you can think yourself into this. You can't figure it out. It is profound and vast, to use some very relative terms that are an attempt to say how very, very incredibly difficult this is to understand or see, because it's right in front of you all the time. More? Your nose itch? It's usually a good sign, isn't it? Isn't that a sign you're coming into money? Oh no, that's when your palm itches. Okay, that's the end of the attempts at humor. I will stop now. Sokuzan,
Choosing buying is what
how the
this.
glass is working.
Okay,
Can you still see me?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
wait,
Which hand?
right.
Okay.
Is what this is different from what I think it is?
If you think it's something, yeah, any thought about it is always a thought about something. So yes, it is. Even if you think it's an illusion, that's still a long ways from seeing that's an illusion. You have to actually retreat from the perception of what this is into the thought patterns to be able to open your big mouth about it and say, this is an illusion. So we need to say something. If you awaken to what this is and you are inspired in some way to teach that to others, then you're going to have to use concepts and ideas and words and use them in a skillful way so that it doesn't create further spinning in the mind of the person. Or
Choosing buying is seeing what this is, seeing through what I think it is.
no, it's just seeing what this is. There's no movement other than just seeing what it is. And that seeing will not be a seeing in the conventional sense of seeing this kotsu or seeing this movement. It's a different kind of seeing. It can't be validated. There'll be no pat on the back. There'll be no merit badge. I've sometimes said it this way: you won't know it. And the reason you won't know it, because if you actually see what this is, then you've seen through the dualistic barrier. And if you see through that, then the self is also seen through, is gone. So there's no one left to see anything. There's just consciousness. And then it doesn't matter if there's a living form here, over there, anywhere. As far as the wisdom goes, it's a seeing that is not seeing anything. Because that not seeing any, if you see something, then the relativity persists. So it seems to be necessary to have a teacher, a teaching in a community, or a Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I'm not saying it can't be done without that. Sometimes this just spontaneously happens to some people. It just suddenly the whole polarity just falls apart, including the belief in the self, or the feeling that they are a separate person that dies, or they think it died, or they feel like it. They feel like they died because they're no longer there.
Choose and buying. So is the seeing already the case? I'm just identifying with what I think I see.
Yeah, you're however you're seeing, whatever you're seeing or feeling, everything, you just think it's true. That doesn't mean you haven't looked at it and thought about it and can maybe weighed ideas about it and so on, but you fundamentally think some things are true and some things are false. And one, a human being who is no longer identified with that singularity or with that duality doesn't really see anything. Doesn't mean that they don't hear something or feel something or smell something. They just know that it's not separate from anything else. Fundamental understanding. More?
Choose and buying. So does that identification just wear out with time and practice?
Possible that you could say that it wears out. There are teachers, the Trungpa Rinpoche talked about wearing out ego, just like walking on an old shoe. You don't get it rehealed or sold. You just continue to move along, and eventually through the sitting practice of meditation, through the practice of study of the Buddha's Dharma under a teacher, eventually that wears out. I would use that particularly, but I wouldn't disagree with it. It doesn't, that relative term can be kind of inspiring to help somebody continue to practice when we just get tired of it. After years and years of practicing, feeling like we're not getting any, we're not making any progress on this. It's just still difficult. We don't seem to get any. We keep looking at relative situations of learning to become a carpenter. We slowly get better. Learning to become an artist, we slowly get better. Meditation is almost the opposite to that. You slowly get worse. We get less and less support, less. It just gets harder and harder. And that's why it's necessary to have a teacher who has somehow understood through his or her teachings and teacher through that. That's why there's a lineage is so important. It goes back to the time of the Buddha. This person, my understanding goes back to the time of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, through other teachers and other teachings to the present day. That's why I'm able to sit up here and talk about this.
Choose and buying. Is there a relative quality of change from seeing what I think it is to seeing what it is?
Sorry. You will not have any proof. You will not just if anything happens at all, you notice anything, you just notice you're not concerned about what happens. And then not concerned about what happens doesn't mean that you don't have feelings or emotions that could be more intense. It could be more outrageous. But there's no being there that's having that feeling. It's just the outrageousness of the illusion. The illusion can get extremely powerful. And if you have no mind training and it starts to get extremely powerful, there's a good chance you'll need medical help or some kind of relative help for somebody to fix you, because in our society, in our culture, something's wrong with you. You need to be dealt with. Whereas on the spiritual path, if you start to blow your brains out, I'm not talking about literally. If you do that, that's, end of this particular quadrant of your lifetimes. But if you do that with the teacher probably is going to encourage you to go right into that forest. And if they don't encourage you to go in and see who you are, no matter what, then they're not a true teacher. They're looking for some kind of credential, or they're afraid of hurting your feelings. You might not like them. I have several students that do not like me. The ones that really get that really intense, they stop being students of mine. Is that wrong? No, do whatever you want to do. I can't change how I teach. I can't change how I talk, just like this Community Mindfulness Center. When I say I want that to happen, I'm all about the intention for that to happen. All my energy goes towards that. And I can say in the same breath, doesn't matter what happens. Because for me, a relative truth and the ultimate truth are not two separate things. And I can't sit up here and have somebody coach me and say, well, you really can't say that because people won't donate. Well, won't donate then. But I can't manipulate what I'm saying so that people will like me or dip deep into their pocketbooks. All I can say is, help me to help others. I'm helping you as much as I can. I'm not charging you a fee. And some of you are very generous with helping me and helping this community. And I appreciate that very much. More? Yes, sir.
Dodo bowing, you've shared how at first, especially the Tibetan imagery was irritating.
Really
to
irritating.
you.
Still is.
How do you find the inspiration to use those concepts if you are also irritated with them?
Same thing, you're not separate. You don't have to get rid of anything. You don't have to feel better. You don't have to suddenly get over your preoccupation with this or that. Function right in the middle of it. Those of you who were here for the Sadhana Mahamudra, which we do every new moon and full moon and have been doing for years. We're here. I use the Bell and Dorje and the Damaru to accent that practice as we went along. I only think there was maybe 2 or 3 people online. The rest of the people were in the monastery. If you don't understand what that's about, it's very aggravating. It seems kind of dumb, doesn't it, Robin?
I don't know what it's about, bowing, but I don't know, there's something about it.
I'm just noticing the expression on your face. You're sitting right in front of me. I think this probably does look pretty foolish to Robin. But if you've been doing it for 50 years, as I have, it's not particularly one way or another. It's just a way of ritualizing what happens in the mind stream and what happens in the vocal cords and what happens in the body, speech, and mind in such a way that that actually becomes awareness rather than awareness about something. It's awareness rather than awareness about a damaru or a drum or about a bell or about or about the words you're using. And at the same time, those words are very, very powerful and meaningful. Are they not? So I'm asking Ondo because she spent 30 days in solitary retreat, as did Yudao and Shodo. Wasn't that 30 days working just on the sadhana? And these are the people who are leading it, along with Chezan, who's not here this evening. Powerful, powerful practice. Yes, sir.
Sokuzan, when there's a feeling of suffering that's so intense that there's a preoccupation with it or a fixation with it, what does it mean to look into the forest?
Look into what?
Into the forest, to use the imagery.
Just look at the crap that you would like not to be there. Look at the second noble truth right in the face. There it is. The first noble truth is life sucks. And the second noble truth is because you don't like that it sucks. And so whatever that is, it's like looking into the forest. You're going to go right directly into that negativity. Very difficult to do. Most approaches in our society, our culture, about covering up the negativity, removing the negativity, so negativity is wrong, shouldn't be there. You got to fix it. You got to cover it up. You got to do something. The spiritual path, as I understand it, is to go right into the negativity because that's the only place you'll find the truth. And that's what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Isn't that astonishing? 2,500 years ago, a man discovered something and he shared it with others. Yes.
How does that point to no self when it looks like there's a self that is scrambling to not feel or to,
But just observe that. It's not going to leave with what it is and point to something else. The very thing you're looking at is the pointer. The very arrow is the target. You're getting ready to go into retreat, aren't you? Just look at that. Just go in. What's your instruction? Chicken taza for 10, 11 days, something like that.
we haven't talked about it yet, but that's,
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. What you're going to be doing in chicken taza. Sit down, hold still, watch the movement of the mind. Come and go, day after day after day after day. And watch the way you continue to include or exclude or manipulate the mind stream without fixing anything.
because they're not fixing anything. Include that all of that activity of fixing or trying to fix is also going to be there. That's not going to change either.
It's an illusion. It doesn't have to change. It's unreal. That's why you need to look at the garbage heap to see that it's unreal. You have to look at anger. You have to look at rage. You have to look at jealousy. Because if you try to push it away, or if you're trying to blame, or if you try to ignore, it just perpetuates circular, or even triangular passion, aggression, ignorance, passion, aggression, ignorance, pushing, pulling, shutting down, pushing, pulling, shutting down. If you just look at that, just look at it, then eventually you will see there's no guarantee, but then there's a possibility you could see your true nature, which is without a self, without a center, without a fringe, without an other. Everything's empty of other. This is an illusion. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It isn't vivid. It isn't a pile of snapdragons. Of course it is, but it's not real. It's not substantial. Find out what is real.
Do we label our true nature as suffering because we don't want to go into it?
Well, we label, we call this, call that, and judge this and judge that, which sets up a lot of barriers to seeing our true nature. Actually, you can't actually see your true nature because it's just a way of talking about it. You're just no longer looking for anything else. What you're looking for, you've found. What you're looking for, you're looking at. It may be covered up with a pile of green hammocks. You may spend a lot of time untying those from the trees or the branches, slowly doing that, and then realize there was never anything there to do. There never was any hammocks. There never was anything in the way. It was unreal. It was an illusion that you bought into in order to reify, establish, and validate and fuel an imaginary self that is at war or is at peace or doesn't give a shit. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. Right.
Yun bowing, what is formless? Is anything formless? What is formless?
The way it's talked about, consciousness is without form, but consciousness finds form. Something arising is arising in consciousness. But then also consciousness arises in forms. And consciousness is not separate from forms. That's part of the illusion.
Yun bowing, can we see formlessness, or can we see formlessness?
I think we see it conceptually. But as far as actually seeing formlessness, you won't see anything because there's nothing there. This is part of the teaching around that area, shunyata, or emptiness. Things are empty of what we think they are. We think this is a hand, but what it actually is empty of what we think it is. And as has been said, it's full of what it actually is. And what is it actually? It's not separate from anything.
Human bowing. So if you hold up your teaching stick and I look at it and I somehow am dropping or seeing through all my beliefs and preconceptions about that, am I now disappeared? Am I now seeing it as it is?
No.
How come?
You're still thinking it as you think it is. You thought it went away. You just said so. Let me say it this way. You will not be able to find anything to hang your hat on. Your understanding can't track you along with some kind of relative understanding of seeing it or not seeing it. That's why it's even been said, there's a teaching, I don't know, maybe one of you can remember, the true seeing is not seeing. Or the true Dharma is nothing at all. Just like it says in the Diamond Sutra, it said that the very first verse, that's all you have to do, is everything is in the first verse. And it's just the Buddha comes in, sits down, and the monks come and circumambulate and touch their head to his feet or something like that. And then you go take their seat. That's the Diamond Sutra. Then all the other, how many verses is it? Anybody? 28
Ish.
28-ish. Ish is extra.
How can I see anything as it is?
Continue to look at it as it is not. In other words, thoughts come and go, they arise, we have good feelings, we have bad feelings, we have scary feelings, we have entertaining feelings, we have laughter. Things are just coming and going. Just continue to watch that, continue to observe that. And insofar as you're able to, don't add or subtract or divide. But if you do that, then notice how you keep pushing on certain things, aggression, or pulling on certain things, changing things around to blame why you're feeling this way or that way, passion. Just observe that. Less around that begins to refine that so you see more and more closely what something is. And what happens is you see that everything is dependently arisen, and the discovery, if you call it that, and it's not an actual discovery because the very discovery itself counteracts the discovery, because the discovery is that there isn't anyone. But if you see there isn't anyone, then there's no one left to see that there are seeing that there isn't anyone. So it's quite a paradox. But you don't get that. You don't get to have any. You don't get to get credit for it. There's no place to put your merit badge. See, for a long time I didn't see, but finally I understand. For a long time I wasn't enlightened. Life was suffering. Then I became enlightened, and I got it now. And now I'm just busy teaching everyone. What is that about? Why would somebody even presume to teach anybody anything if they don't see what this is? I see what it's not. I teach out of what I don't see. What do I see? It's not separate. Does that mean we're all one? Not by a long shot. What? Yes. Who's online?
Milk bowing. Martin from Latvia
Martin.
asks, is everything which seems separate actually coming from the same source?
Let me say it this way. There is no source. The idea of a source comes from grasping at the evidence of karma. This, moving through space, action, which is what karma means in Sanskrit, causes a third thing, found. And also, we're seeing something happen. So those situations make it very easy to impute that this caused that. But that buys into what? What is the other illusion that supports that? Time. That we think something's actually moving through space, that there's a past and there's a future. Fundamentally, nothing happens. It just looks like it. Martin. So no source. Take a couple more questions. Choke it out. Do you have any questions?
Jishin,
Yashin, go ahead.
Jishin Bowing. What is the difference between being aware and being conscious? Bowing.
So the way I use it is you're aware of this kotsu, this stick, and conscious is you may not be aware of the part of consciousness that is happening in your kidneys or in your digestive tract. It's the consciousness is operating there, but it's not operating from a point of view of like what you see, what you taste, what you smell. Just a way of kind of addressing your question in a way that hopefully will be helpful to you. I think it's to make more elaborations on it is not particularly helpful. So you're aware, like if I'm aware of your face, I'm not aware of everyone else in here other than through peripheral vision. And that's something I teach when it comes to the classes that I teach or workshops in opening the eye mind, which some of you are familiar with, about how to look at visual art and move the awareness. You're looking at something and then you move the awareness in an area that there's, you make use of the tendency or the aspect of consciousness that can kind of like see out of the corner of your eye and emphasize that a little bit. That can be done with all the sense fields, but in particular with the sense of seeing. More? Jishin.
Jishin Bowing. I have a question about not how about not seeing anything. If, when you are not seeing anything, does it mean that you don't see something else, that you don't see the other? Bowing.
That's a way of talking about it. You don't see something else like it's not like I see my hand, but it's my hand. So there's the otherness is pretty reduced in that area, but it's extremely reduced if you look across the street and you see somebody walking down the street and you look at them and you realize you're not seeing something else. It's empty of other. You're just seeing consciousness. It just happens to be in a form called that we call, or I'm calling, and is called quite a bit. That is an illusion. It's unreal. It's relatively real. The nerve endings are real. Pain, pleasure, not separate from each other. Just looks like it. Very difficult to put in the food processor mind or brain and figure it out or have some kind of logic that justifies or validates the whole thing. Although some scholars are very good at reinforcing that area of thinking around things like non-duality and so on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Milka Bowing, a question from Drake. Drake Bowing, my mom passed away last week. I feel a great emptiness in myself. Is that me feeling a more true nature of reality?
Not necessarily. Mom passed away last week, and but she has gone. Just her body's gone. She's not gone. Not going anywhere. Talk to her. When I'm saying talk to her, I'm not saying you have to do that, but you could. You might get an idea that she's not that far away. Is there a further question, or should we close? Is there a further question on Zoom? Anywhere?
Peter Bowing.
Peter, go ahead.
The Third Noble Truth says that there is cessation. What is it that ceases?
My understanding of Third Noble Truth of Nirodha or cessation is the grasping at a self, the grasping at another, that ceases. The belief in someone and something else, that ceases. The suffering, the difficulty, the thunder and lightning may still continue because it has a particular trajectory and it's dependently risen. The causation is all it's extremely involved and complicated. So that may still happen. Your own emotional dynamics may still surge forth, or they may be pacified. They may slow way down. It seems to be different for each person.
Thank you.
Some people, some people teach it that suffering comes to an end. I wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't disagree either, because how do I know? If someone says that that's how it looks to them, then maybe that's how it looks to them. Maybe for them, because of their particular dynamic in the karma from ancient times until now, their particular dynamic is such that when they realize their true nature, that their particular consciousness, there's no more warfare going on. Whereas maybe somebody else, that warfare has such an incredible amount of momentum that even if they realize their true nature, that they may still have a lot of things exploding in the background. It's just that they won't be bothered by it. It won't be something they might not necessarily have thoughts of, I must not be awake because I'm still suffering or I'm still experiencing pain. It's better than that. It's worse than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take one more, Jishin, and that's it.
Thank you. There is a sentence in Sadhana Mahamudra, all appearing phenomena are the play of mind. Is the mind in this case the same as consciousness?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and consciousness doesn't belong to anyone. If a child is born, then part of the dynamic there is consciousness. Part of the dynamic is seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, thinking, all that shows up. But the consciousness that is there doesn't have any ownership. That is laid on by the society, by the culture, by the teaching from the parents, and by whatever lifetime may have, I say may have preceded this particular lifetime. Whatever karma, whatever causes and conditions they're trying to find some expression in this particular living being, but that they didn't find in the previous living being. Is that actually happening? I'm not here to justify anything. It just looks like that's what's happening. Quite the strong illusion in that area. So, something else around that?
No, thank you.
Welcome. Is there another question or should we close? Very good. Thank you so much.
I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.